Hello everyone, welcome to the online session. I am Shivali Gowde and today we will be doing the first chapter of Science 1, that is gravitation. Okay, now before moving to gravitational force, you should know that between any two objects, right, when I say any two objects, not only on the earth but anywhere in the universe, right, if you consider any two objects, there's always going to be a force of attraction between them. There's always going to be this universal force acting between those two objects. And this universal force is called as gravitational force. Now, when we say gravitation, we should know who discovered this gravitation. How was it discovered? Right? Now, when I say who discovered gravitation, ये तो सबको ही पता रहेगा, right? Because this force, this phenomena of gravitation was first discovered by Sir Isaac Newton. Newton तो सबको ही पता है. Now the next question persists that how was it discovered? How did he discover this gravitation? Right? Now everyone knows the story. Not if not everyone, most of you must be knowing this story that once Sir Isaac Newton was sitting under a tree and all of a sudden an apple fell on his head, right? And then seeing this apple fall from a tree onto the ground, this Newton started thinking, अगर हम लोग होते तो directly apple खा जाते, right? But Newton was different. He started thinking कि ये जो apple है वो vertically नीचे ही क्यों गिरा? Why it did not fall horizontally? Right? वो horizontally east या west में क्यों नहीं गया? वो directly नीचे ही ground पे ही क्यों गिरा? Ground पे गिरा तो गिरा. Why did it fall perpendicularly? Why it did not fell to the 60 to an angle of 60 degrees or to an angle of 45 degrees and so on? Why did it fell at an angle of 90 degrees to the ground? Right? Now, so what did he conclude after thinking of all such questions? What did he finally conclude? Right? After much thought, Newton came to the conclusion that Earth must be attracting the things towards itself. Now, when I say Earth is attracting things towards itself, means what? Towards the center, towards its center, right? That means the direction of this force must be towards the center of the Earth. Whatever the force of attraction is, right? That force of attraction is allowing or helping the apple to come to the center of the earth. Right now, when I say that, let's see the diagram given in the textbook. According to the textbook, what do we have? Let me draw this diagram. So you can see if you have your textbook with you, right? There's this earth shown. This is our earth. On the earth, we have this tree, right? And there's this apple, right? This is the center of the earth. This is apple falling, and this is falling such that it is directed to the center of the earth, right? So wherever the apple is, anywhere on the tree, at whatever height from the center of the earth, right, it is still coming towards the center. It is still falling towards the center of the earth, right? Now, if I see this, what in the textbook it is given, the force on an apple on the tree is towards the center of the earth, right? That is along the perpendicular from the position of the apple to the surface of the earth. It was the conclusion given. ये जो gravitation force है, how does it act? It acts towards the center of the earth. So whether the apple, wherever the apple be, at whatever height on the tree, it will still fall vertical. It will still fall vertically. Why? And that too at 90 degrees from the center. Right? Center को consider किया, so with respect to 90 degrees, the apple is going to fall. I hope it is clear. Now in the textbook they have also shown a moon. Tree तो है ही, plus एक moon भी है. Let's say this is our moon, right? So moon का क्या है? Obviously, when I say two objects in the universe, I did not just say an apple and the earth. We said any two objects in the universe. So that can be moon and earth as well, right? So there's this gravitational force acting between the moon and the earth as well. अब moon तो कितने ज़्यादा distance पे है, कितना दूर है, still that gravitational force is acting on it, correct? Now again, after thinking of all such questions, there was few more questions in Newton's brain, right? The first question was, if the force of gravitation acts on apples on the tree at different height from the surface of the earth, ठीक है, एक ही ट्री पे ये जो एप्पल्स है वो अलग अलग डिस्टेंसेस पे होंगे फ्रॉम द ग्राउंड, अगर उन एप्पल्स पे भी ये ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स एक्ट कर सकता है, then it can also act on objects at even greater heights. That means और भी अगर greater heights पे कोई दूसरे objects होंगे तो on those objects also this gravitational force will be acting. Again, as we consider this moon is at a very far distance, right? Still this gravitational force will be acting on this moon, right? So other than this moon, can this gravitational force be acting on the planets, on the other planets in the universe as well as on the sun, right? So all these questions were there. So yes, this gravitational force acts on any two objects in the universe. So it can be between planets, or it can be between sun and earth, or between moon and earth, and so on. Okay, I hope this part is clear. Now next concept that we have is of circular motion and centripetal force. Okay, now coming to circular motion, what do you mean by circular motion? First of all, let me just clear everything. Now what do you mean by circular motion? Now they have given the motion of an object around the circumference is called circular motion, right? If this is a circle, right? Let's say this is an object on this circle. So if this object moves along this circular path, if this object moves along this circular path, that means circular motion is acting on that object. So how do we define circular motion? The motion is the circular motion is a movement of an object, right? It is the movement of an object along the circumference of a circle. ठीक है, ये circle है. Okay, my bad. This is a circle, correct? And this will be the circumference of the circle. So if the body or if the object is moving along the circumference of the circle, or if it is making a circular motion, or if it is going along a circular path, right, then it is called as circular motion, correct? Now again, in a textbook, an activity is given. Now before moving to this activity, let's first understand this circular motion with the help of an example. Okay. Now they have also given uniform circular motion. Circular motion of an object with constant speed is called as uniform circular motion. अगर वो object का speed constant है, it is not changing, it is moving along the same constant speed, then it is called as uniform circular motion. Now let's take an example of Earth. We know Earth rotates around itself and it also revolves around the sun, correct? Now when it is rotating or when it is revolving, does it change its speed or it moves at a constant speed? We all know the answer. Obviously it moves at a constant speed, right? So that means we can say it is in a uniform circular motion. जब Earth खुद के around rotate होता है, right, then what do we get? We get day and night, correct? Similarly, when Earth revolves around the sun, then what do we get? Then we get 12 months, different months, right? So in a similar way, an activity is given in your textbook, right? What is the activity given? A stone tied to a string moving along a circular path. That means what are you going to do? You are going to take a stone and you're going to tie a thread to that particular stone, right? And you start revolving it in the air. Can you see this diagram? We have this person, right? Stone liya hai, right? And then with the help of a thread, you have tied that stone and then you start revolving it in the air, right? So what will happen once you start revolving? Circular motion will follow karega, right? Now we also know what will happen if you release the thread. Agar ye thread maine chhod diya, then what will happen? At whatever position that particular stone will be, then, right, once you release the thread, it will move along the tangent. ये अगर ये पोजीशन में है तो अकॉर्डिंग टू द tangent वाइज वो मूव होगा, वो सर्कुलर मोशन फॉलो नहीं करेगा. It will move along the tangent, right? Because it is going to follow the law of inertia, right? And that is why it is going to be following this tangent moment, tangential direction. Correct? Now let's again understand with an example. If you must have played sports, right? Sports में shot put ये game पता होगा आपको. Now when you are playing this shot put game, what happens? You have a heavy ball in your palm, right? You place that heavy ball in your palm and then you start rotating your arm, right? And after gaining some uniform motion, what you do is you release that stone from your palm. तो जब आप रिलीज करते हो तो इन विच डायरेक्शन डज इट मूव? इट विल मूव इन द टेंजेंशियल डायरेक्शन. वो आगे की तरफ जाता है, राइट? इट मूव्स इन फ्रंट, टेंजेंशियल डायरेक्शन में जाके फिर आगे जाके एट सम डिस्टेंस इट फॉल्स, राइट? सो द मेन थिंग हैपनिंग इन दिस केस इज, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, राइट, ये जो स्ट्रिंग है वो हम लोग ने पकड़ के रखा है, right? I have tied this string to this particular stone. This stone will always try to move in the tangential direction, but since it is tied to the string and this string is in the hand, right, it is not allowing the stone to follow the tangential direction. It is again and again it is again and again pulling that stone towards the center, right? What does that string do? It is pulling the stone towards the center and as a result it is following the circular motion, right? So you can see this top view. If you release the thread, if this is the position of your stone, it will follow the tangential direction, right? If this is the position of the stone, it will follow the tangential direction. If this is the position of the stone, it will go in the tangential direction. But since it is connected to the string, right, it is getting pulled inwards towards the center. It is getting pulled towards the center, and that is why it is not able to go in that tangential direction, and it maintains that circular motion. Why is this happening? Right? What is this inward force? This force is called a centripetal force. Now, what is the centripetal force? Force experienced by an object performing uniform circular motion. Right? So this object is performing uniform motion, right? And it is experiencing a force inwards towards the center, and that is called a centripetal force. In the textbook, it is given a force acts on any object moving along a circle, and it is directed towards the center of the circle, right? And this force acting towards the center of the circle is called a centripetal force. Now, what do I mean by centripetal? Centripetal means center seeking force. Why? Because it is pulling the object towards the center to maintain the circular motion. I hope it is clear. And this centripetal force is given by mv square upon r. We will see this later on, right? We just only need to understand right now that centripetal force is given by mv square upon r, where m is the mass of the object, v is the speed of the object in which it is moving along the circular motion, right? And r is the radius. Okay, radius means distance between the object and the center. Okay, let's start with our new topic, that is Kepler's law, also called as Kepler's law of planetary motion. Now, why are we studying this? During 16th century, a lot of data was available regarding planetary positions and motions, like how the planets were positioned or how they were moving in and around the orbit, right? So what did Kepler do is he studied all those data. Whatever data was available, he started studying that. And then he noticed that the motion of planets follow certain laws. कुछ तो laws होते हैं उसके basis पे ही, right, the planet moves or they are in motion. So these three Kepler's law are stated, and this they are, what do they describe? They describe the planetary motion, right? But now, before moving to this Kepler's law, we should first understand that what do we mean by an ellipse, correct? So you can see in the textbook it is given, right? An ellipse is the curve. Can you see this? An ellipse is the curve obtained when a cone is cut by an inclined plane. Now everyone knows a cone. I have drawn a cone over here, right? So when you cut a cone horizontally, एक horizontal plane से अगर cut किया, so you will see a circle, right? You will see a circle which will be formed. But when you will cut this cone by an inclined plane, can you see now I have cut this cone by an inclined plane, right? An ellipse is formed, and this ellipse basically looks like this, correct? Now, what is the property of this ellipse? First of all, this ellipse will have two focal points. I have marked those two focal points, F1 and F2. Can you see that? F1 and F2. So, according to the property of ellipse, right, the sum of the distances, right, if I consider any point on the curve, if I consider any point on this ellipse, right, the sum of the distances of those two focal points from all those points on the curves, right, all the sum of the distances will be constant. Now what do I mean by that? That is why I have used different colors. Can you see point A over here? Now when I take this point A, you can see that the distance, I have joined point A with F1 and I have joined point A with F2, right? So what will be the sum of the distances? एक distance हुआ AF1 and the other distance will be AF2 from the point A itself to the focal points. So the sum of these distances will be AF1 plus AF2. Similarly, consider another point B. Now the distance of B from F1 and F2, what will it be? BF1 plus BF2. Similarly, consider this point C. Distance of this point C from the focal points will be CF1 and CF2, and the sum will be denoted by this plus, right? Similarly, consider this point E, EF1 plus EF2, right? Now, what does this property say? Ki all these sums that we get, wherever the point be, but the sum of the distances of those points from the focal points is always going to be constant. So when I say that, right, this AF1 plus AF2, this sum is going to be equal to the sum of the other points BF1 plus BF2. This is going to be equal to the same sum from another point CF1 plus CF2, which will be constant with the other point also EF1 plus EF2. I hope it is clear. I'll write it below, EF1 plus EF2. Okay. Is it clear? Now, once we know this ellipse, right, now we can move on to the three laws. So the first is Kepler's first law. So how are they named? Kepler's first law, Kepler's second law, and Kepler's third law. So what does this Kepler's first law state? The orbit of a planet is an ellipse. Now we all know that planets revolve around the sun and they revolve along the orbits, correct? Now according to the Kepler's first law, these orbits are of which shape? They are like ellipse, right? The orbit of a planet is an ellipse with the sun at one of the foci. We just saw that in an ellipse, we have two focal points, right? So wherever the planet be on that particular elliptical orbit, right, the sun will always at one of the foci. One of the foci means one focal point, many foci. Okay, that is a plural form. So you can see, if you see this particular ellipse, right? If this is an ellipse and if A, B, C, D are just representing planets, in that case S represents sun. So sun is at the focal point. Can you see that? So two focal points रहेंगे. So this is one. Here somewhere it will be second focal point. The sun is always going to be on the one of the foci. That is the first law. Now what is Kepler's second law? The line joining the sun and the planet. Okay, again let's consider A is our position of the planet. So the line joining the sun and the planet sweeps equal areas in equal interval of time. Now what does this mean? Okay, now in the second law, let's consider this point A, right? Let's say we have one planet over here, right, at point A, right? So I'm joining this initial position of this planet with the sun, correct? Now what is happening? Let's say in 15 minutes, okay, I'm giving 15 minutes, and in this 15 minutes, this earth or this planet is traveling from point A to point B. How much time did we take? 15 minutes. We are just assuming some time, okay? In 15 minutes, right, planet is traveling from point A to point B. So with respect to that, if we join the lines, we can see this is the area covered when the planet travels from A to B, correct? Now let's assume that planet anywhere to be, let's say on this point C, somewhere else on the curve, somewhere else on the orbit. Okay. So now if I consider the initial position of the planet at C, again in same interval of time. How much interval of time? 15 minutes. So in the same 15 minutes, after traveling for 15 minutes, it reaches at point D. Now again, when you join these lines, right, it will give you some it will give you some area, right? Similarly, if you consider the planet's position at point E, and again if you consider 15 minutes time interval, it will reach at point F. And again, if you join the lines, you can see this is the third area which is swiped. So according to the Kepler's second law, right, it sweeps equal areas in equal interval of time. So wherever the planet be, if the time interval is same, right, it sweeps the same area always. So this area, this point 1, you can see the numbering 1, 2 and 3. All these areas swept are going to be equal. I hope it is clear, right? Given that this position, this area swiped this area swept are for the same interval of time. Okay. Now, according to the Kepler's third law, now what does this third law states? The square of its period of revolution around the sun. Now, this planet is going to be revolving around the sun. So, obviously, it will be taking some time period to revolve around the sun. So, we are talking about the time period T. So, let's assume T is the time period we are talking about. The planet takes to revolve around the sun, right? And then we have the mean distance of the planet. That means let's take R, right? So what is this R? R is a distance of that planet from the sun, right? Now when I say mean distance, initial position अगर A पे भी consider तो कुछ तो R1 होगा initial radius, right? When you consider at point C कुछ तो initial radius R2 होगा. When you consider another position, radius R3 hoga. So when you take mean of these radius, right, let's assume that as R. Mean of the radius be R and time taken or time period to revolve around the sun be T. So according to the third law of Kepler, right, the square of the time period of revolution around the sun, that is t square, time period ka square is t square, is directly proportional to the cube of the mean distance of the planet from the sun. We just saw that the distance of the planet from the sun is r1, r2, r3. So the mean that we are taking is r. Mean means average, right? Average of those distances, distance of the planet from the sun. So t square is directly proportional to the cube of the mean distance. So this is what we get, that t square is directly proportional to r cube. Now, since there's a proportionality sign over here, if I remove that proportionality sign and if I take a constant, what do we get? We get that t square is equals to k times r cube. I removed the proportionality constant. So if you just rearrange it, you will get that t square upon r cube is equals to constant. That is what it is given over here, right? So according to the Kepler's third law, t square, time period square upon cube of the distance, cube of the mean distance is constant. So these are the three laws of Kepler's, right? First law states that the orbit is an ellipse, right, in which the planet revolves and the sun is at one of the foci. Ellipse always have two focal points. Okay. Kepler's second law states that when the time interval is same, right, then if the line joining the sun and the planet, they sweep equal areas in equal intervals of time. And the Kepler's third law states that t square upon r cube is equals to constant. So you should know these three laws. These are quite important. Okay. Now going to the next topic that we have is Newton's universal law of gravitation, right? What it is? Newton's universal law of gravitation. Now what does this say? Every object in the universe attracts every other object with a definite force. Now we just saw it in the first slide itself. Between any two objects in the universe, there's always this force of attraction between them. And then we saw that this force of attraction is basically the gravitational force exerted by the earth on those objects, right? Now this force of attraction between the objects, between any two objects, is directly proportional to the product of the masses and is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. Now, we are studying Newton's universal law of gravitation, right? So let's assume there's this object, right, with a mass of m1. There's this another object with a mass of m2. Okay, there is two different objects. And then there's the distance between the centers. These are the centers. Then the distance between them, let's consider that as d. Then obviously this m1 will be having some force of attraction, right? This m2 ball will have some force of attraction. They will be attracting each other, right? Now in this case, according to this Newton's law, right, it states that this force of attraction between them is directly proportional to the product of their masses. What masses have we taken? m1 and m2. So this force of attraction is directly proportional to m1 into m2, right? It also states that this force of attraction is inversely proportional. It is inversely proportional to the square of the distance between them. What distance have we taken? We have assumed d is a distance between the two centers of the masses, right? So f is directly inversely proportional to the distance square. Now when I say directly proportional to the product of the masses, what does that mean? The more you increase the mass, the force of attraction will also increase. राइट? जितना मास बढ़ाते जाओगे ऑब्जेक्ट्स का, उतना फोर्स ऑफ अट्रैक्शन भी बढ़ते जाएगा. मास कम करोगे तो फोर्स ऑफ अट्रैक्शन भी कम होगा, राइट? Similarly, when I say inversely proportional to the square of the distance, what does that mean? Right? The more you increase the distance, the lesser is going to be the force. Lesser the distance, more is the force. Correct? Now, when I write it properly together, right, I can say F is directly proportional to the product of the masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance. Right? Now, if I remove this proportionality sign, right, I can get a proportionality constant, that is G, M1 into M2 upon D square. Now, what is this G? This G is basically called as gravitational constant. Correct? So, what is this G? This G is equals to gravitational constant. Okay, we also call it as universal constant. Why do we call it as universal constant? Because the value, whatever the value of G is, right, this value does not get affected by any external factors on the in the universe. Correct? This value of G never changes. It remains as it is. And what is the value of G? The value of G is 6.673. It is given in the textbook. 6.673 into 10 raised to minus 11. Or it is 10 raised to minus 11. I am using this cap sign. That means 10 is raised to minus 11. That is Newton meter square upon kg square. Correct? Let me see if I can write it properly. So G is basically 6.673 into 10 raised to minus 11. What is the unit? Newton meter square upon kg square. So this is the unit of this gravitational constant. Okay, you need to remember this. It is Newton meter square upon kg square. Now when I say this, right, you have the formula. What is the Newton's universal law of gravitation? It states that F is equals to G into M1 into M2 upon D square. This is the formula that you get, right? Now, let's consider some cases with respect to that. Okay, you can take a screenshot of this and write it in your notebooks if you want, right? Now, next that we can see other cases. We are going to discuss the cases now. So, I know that F is equals to force of attraction or the gravitational force, right? F is what? The gravitational force or the force of attraction is equals to G times M1 into M2 upon D square, right? Now, as we know, the more we increase the mass, that force is also going to increase, right? So in that case, if I double the mass, right? If mass, okay, I'll just use a text box instead. So first is, if the mass is doubled, right? Then what will happen? If you double the mass, obviously the force is also going to get doubled, right? So in that case, force between the two objects also doubles. Correct? Similarly, if I divide one of the mass of the objects by 2, अगर मैंने half कर दिया एक mass को, right? If mass of one of the objects is half, right? So in that case, it is directly proportional, right? So the force will also get, the force between the two objects will also get half, right? I hope it is clear. Similarly, with respect to the distance, right? Now distance is inversely proportional. So if we double the distance between the object and the center of the earth, right? If the distance, I'm sorry, distance between the two objects, okay? So if the distance between the two objects is doubled, तो force क्या होगा? Force decreases. But since we are taking d square, that inversely proportional to the distance square, मतलब अगर distance को double किया तो वो हो जाएगा 2 square, that is 4. That means the force is going to get decreased by a factor of 4, right? So force decreases by a factor of 4, right? Similarly, if you will half the distance, accordingly the change will happen. If you will decrease the distance, the force will increase. I hope it is clear. If you will half the distance, so half ka square will become 1/4. Matlab force will increase by a factor of 4. I hope it is clear. So this is Newton's law, universal law of gravitation. Now the next that we can see is, we saw that this gravitational constant G has a unit of Newton meter square upon kg square. Now how do we get that unit? So you need to know how to calculate that unit, right? So how do we find unit of G, right? Now if I consider this equation, F is equals to G m1 m2 upon d square, I'll just rearrange it such that I want unit of G, right? So G is equals to F into d square upon m1 into m2, right? Now we know what is the unit of force. Unit of force is Newton, right? The distance that we take will be in meters, right? तो वो square है तो it will become meter square, right? I'll write it नीचे. Newton, it is meter square upon masses. M1 into M2 are masses and they are taken in kgs, so it will become kg square. So that becomes Newton meter square upon kg square, correct? Or it is also can be written as Newton meter square. Kg square को अगर ऊपर लाया तो it will become kg raised to -2. So this is the unit of gravitational constant and the value is 6.673 into 10 raised to -11. Okay. Now the next that we will see is the relationship between Kepler's third law and Newton's inverse square law of gravitation. Now that means, what are we going to see, right? Now do you remember just last what did we do? Newton's universal law of gravitation, right? In that what did we see? Let me just again go to the whiteboard, right? In Newton's law of gravitation, what did we see? That force is directly proportional to the square, to the product of the masses, and it is inversely proportional to the distance square, right? Now, why did Newton assume that F is inversely proportional to d square, right? And how the Kepler's third law, right, helped this theory to establish, right? What is Kepler's third law? So Kepler's third law states, right, that t square is directly proportional to r cube. That means t square upon r cube is equals to k. We just saw it, right? We have done this. Now how these two are related? How did Kepler's third law help Newton's
theory of f is inversely proportional to d square. Okay. Now to do this, right, again we should come to the previous concept of centripetal force. We have done this already. Now what do you mean by centripetal force? Okay. It is better use your text box again. Right? What do you mean by centripetal force? Right? So if an object or a planet, consider an object or consider a planet, right? If they are moving in a circular motion, right, on the orbit, if you're considering a planet revolves in a circular motion on the orbit, right, around the sun, right? Then when it is revolving in a circular, revolving means it is in a circular motion on the orbit, right? It gets attracted by a force towards the center, right? So that center seeking or that central seeking force is called a centripetal force, correct? So if I draw a circle or an orbit, right? And if we have a sun in between, right? So what is happening over here? Let's say we have a planet somewhere over here, right? This is the planet over here. And what it is trying, it is moving in a circular motion. It is moving in a circular motion, right? Now this planet is obviously getting attracted towards the sun. Now this central seeking force is called a centripetal force, right? Now what are we going to do is we are going to prove that why did Newton take that F is directly inversely proportional to the distance square. Okay, so what are we going to start with is assuming that we have a planet, right? And the mass of this planet is m, right? M is the mass of the planet and it is moving with a speed of v. It is moving with a speed of v around the sun. So this is our sun, okay, in a circular motion. And the distance between the planet and the sun is r. Okay, so what all are we taking? That we are assuming we have a planet of mass m, right? It is moving in a circular motion with a velocity of v, right? Having a radius of r. Radius of r means distance between the planet and the sun is r. So in that case, we had already discussed that centripetal force is given by the formula F is equals to mv square upon r, right? F is equals to mv square upon r, where m is the mass, v is the velocity, and r is the radius, correct? Now also we know the basic formula that speed is equals to distance upon time. Okay, speed is equals to distance upon time. Now what are we going to do is we have already assumed v and r, right? So in that case, speed, we can write speed as v, right? We can take speed as v. Now how much distance will be traveled by this planet? It is traveling, or it is moving in a circular motion on this orbit. तो मतलब जितना circumference रहेगा उतना distance will be traveled by that planet. How do we write the circumference formula? It is 2 pi r, where r is the radius, upon, let t be the time taken to complete one revolution, right? So t is the time taken to complete one revolution, right? 2 pi r is the distance traveled, correct? V is the velocity with which it is traveling, right? So we got that V is equals to 2 pi r by t. So what we can do is we can substitute this V value in this formula, right? So what will we get then? So we will get that F is equals to m times V की जगह पे I will substitute 2 pi r by t. So that will be 2 pi r upon t the whole square upon r. That is what we already have in the denominator, right? So if you square all the terms, if you square it, what will you get? F is equals to m will remain as it is. 2 square will be 4, pi square r square, right? The whole upon t square, and we already have this r over here. This is what you will get, right? Again, I'll repeat. We had F centripetal force is given by mv square upon r, right? We also know that speed is equals to distance upon time, where distance is 2 pi r, time taken is t, right? And speed is v, that is the velocity, right? So we substitute these v's value 2 pi r upon t in the given centripetal force formula. So once you do that, you square this bracket, so you will get m upon r will remain as it is. 2 pi r upon t the whole square will become 4 pi square r square upon t square. Okay, now we have understood till here. Now how are we going to use this Kepler's third law? Now what do we know about Kepler's third law? I have already written that t square. I've already written that Kepler's third law states that t square upon r cube is equals to k, that is constant, right? So what I'll do is I already have r square over here, right? And I have t square over here. I need r cube. So I'll multiply and divide by r, right? So in that case, what will we get? So we will get F is equals to m upon r will remain as it is, right? 4 pi square into r square upon t square into r upon r. Okay, this is what we will get. So I can write F is equals to m upon r. Okay, just give me a second. I hope it is clear till here, right? I'll directly come to the slide part where it is already given. Okay, now here it is clearly mentioned. Can you see we have done till here? Right, that F is equals to m upon r into 2 pi r upon t the whole square, right? Then we got 4 pi square upon t square into m into r. Okay, they have cut r over here. The next thing that they have done is multiplying and dividing by r square. It is the same thing what we were doing. We did not cut the r initially, and over here they have cut the r, right? I'll just okay. So it is basically F is equals to m into 4 pi square r square upon r into t square. ऐसा मिलेगा once you expand this, right? Then they have cut this r, and that is why we have got F is equals to m into 4 pi square, right, into r upon t square. Now we want Kepler's, right? Kepler's third law states that t square upon r cube is equals to k, right? So in that case, we have to multiply. We already have t square over here, r cube chahiye. So what we will do, we will multiply and divide by r square. So in that case, this will become, the numerator will become r cube, right? इसको अगर मैंने r स्क्वायर और r स्क्वायर से मल्टीप्लाई और डिवाइड किया, so what will we get? I'll just write it over here. F is equals to m into 4 pi square upon r square separately. Numerator में it will become r cube, and in the denominator we already had t square. Correct? So now once you do this, can you see we have already got this t square upon r cube is k. So this is also t square, मतलब k नीचे आएगा. So we get m into 4 pi square upon r square into k. Can you see this? Right? Now what they have done is, right, out of this whole thing, right, what is m? M is the mass of the planet, which is not going to change. So m becomes constant. 4 is a constant. 4 का value कभी change नहीं होगा. Pi is a constant. K is a constant. So what are we left with? We are just left with this 1 upon r square value, right? Because r will change, because our the orbit is not spherical, थोड़ा सा elongated है, right? So in that case r will keep on changing. I hope you are getting me, right? Or the distance between any two objects will also change. So it is not fixed. So that is why we can say we take this whole thing as a constant and we are directly left with 1 upon r square. So it is same as writing f is equals to, right, constant into 1 upon r square. So if I remove this constant, proportionality constant, right, so क्या हो जाएगा? F is inversely proportional to 1 upon r square. So this is what you get. So can you see, using Kepler's third law, Newton's theory of that Newton's inverse square law of gravitation is proved, right? I hope it is clear. So in the textbook it is given that Newton concluded that the centripetal force, which is the force acting on the planet to maintain the circular motion, right? Centripetal force क्या होता है? It is a central seeking force. It pulls the objects towards the center, right? So this centripetal force must be inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the planet and the sun. That is what we have proved. Okay. Now going to the next part. Now next that they have given is gravitational force and its effects. Okay. Now due to this gravitational force, कहाँ पे effect होता है? Now these are just some quite a few like 3 examples given. Okay. Now high tides and low tides occurs twice daily. Now what is a high tide? Right? Now high and low tides occur regularly. High tide सुना है, low tide सुना है, right? So when I say high tide, right? High tide मतलब क्या? The level of the water increases, right? When I say low tide, the level of the water along the seashore decreases, correct? So why does this happen? Why does this tides occur? Right? This is because due to moon's gravitational force acting on the water. Right? So जब moon का gravitational force act होता है water पे, accordingly high tide या low tide occur होते हैं. Also due to Earth's gravitational force, right? Sorry. Due to Earth's gravitational force, moon revolves around the Earth. ठीक है? Again, Earth sun के around revolve क्यों होता है? या फिर मून अर्थ के अराउंड रिवॉल्व क्यों होता है? दिस इज बिकॉज ऑफ द ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स, राइट? आर्टिफिशियल सैटेलाइट्स रिवॉल्व अराउंड द अर्थ ड्यू टू ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स ऑफ द अर्थ, right? So these satellites which are sent, correct, they also revolve around the earth. Why? Because of the gravitational force acting between them. Okay, now these were just some examples. Next that we will be doing is value of Earth's gravitational acceleration on the surface of the earth. Okay. Now, acceleration caused due to Earth's gravitational force on the object is called acceleration due to gravity. क्या लिखा है? Acceleration caused due to Earth's gravitational force on the object is called acceleration due to gravity. Now, according to Newton's second law, okay, I'll just write over here. According to Newton's second law of motion, right? What does it say? That F is equals to m into A. That means according to Newton's second law of motion, right, a force acting on a body always result in its acceleration. Okay, on any body, if there is a force acting, it always helps it to accelerate, right? So in that case, right, when gravitational force is acting on any object, right? So if gravitational force is also a kind of force, so when it is acting on an object, it is going to give acceleration, it is going to result in the acceleration of that object. So this acceleration caused due to Earth's gravitational force is called as acceleration due to gravity, right? I hope it is clear now. Whenever a force is applied to any body, it results into its acceleration. So when we talk about gravitational force acting on any body, right? So it is going to result into that body's acceleration. So this acceleration caused due to Earth's gravitational force is called as acceleration due to gravity. It is called as what? Acceleration due to gravity. And this is denoted by G. This is denoted by small g. Okay. Now next thing in the textbook they have given that acceleration is a vector quantity. Right? What it is given? That acceleration is a vector quantity. Now what do I mean by vector quantity? Right? You know there are two quantities, scalar quantities and vector quantities. Now when I say a scalar quantity, that means it always represents magnitude. Right? For example, mass. Mass is a scalar quantity. Right? हम लोग को उसका सिर्फ मैग्नीट्यूड पता होता है. Right? 20 kgs, 30 kgs, 50 kgs, right? And so on. We do not know the direction, but when I say vector quantities, right, it represents magnitude as well as direction. It represents magnitude as well as direction. So when I say acceleration is a vector quantity, why do I say that? Because as a gravitational force on any object due to Earth, right? When the gravitational force is acting on any object, it is directed towards the center of the Earth. Okay? That is a direction of acceleration due to gravity is towards the center of the Earth. For example, when I draw, let's say this is the Earth, right? यहाँ पे किधर तो object है, right? Now there will be, this is the center of the Earth, this is the object that we have, right? So if we want to see the acceleration caused on, resulted on this particular object due to the gravitational force हमेशा central seeking होता है, it is always towards the center of the Earth, right? That means उसका direction हमेशा downwards ही होता है, correct? The direction of this acceleration is always downwards, or I can say it is always towards the center of the Earth. So that means direction is also known. So that is why we say acceleration is a vector quantity. We know the magnitude as well as we know the direction of that particular quantity. Is this thing clear? Right? Now the next that we need to know is value of this G. Right? What do we need to know? Value of this G on the surface of the Earth. Okay? So you can just take a screenshot of this. Right? Now next that we are going to do is value of G, right? When the object is on the surface of the earth. Okay. Now how do we find the value of G? Now we all know Newton's universal law of gravitation. According to Newton's law of gravitation, right? F is equals to G times m1 into m2 upon d square. We have already done this formula, right? Now when I'm considering earth and object, right? I'm considering what? Earth as one of the objects and one more another object other than earth, right? So in that case, for earth, I can say what I will do is I'll assume m to be the mass of earth. I'll assume capital M to be mass of earth, right? Small m to be mass of an object. Okay. Let r be the distance of that object from the center of the earth. What is r? R is distance of that object from the center of the earth. Okay. So now what will happen? How will it look like? It will be F is equals to G times capital M small m upon R square. This is how it will look like. Correct? Now, we also know that the weight, right? Weight is also, or the weight exerted, or the weight is also same as gravitational force. And having said that, right, what is weight basically? Weight is the capacity of the earth to pull an object downwards. Weight क्या होता है? Earth का capacity to pull that particular object downwards, right? In short, what it is the same as in gravitational force. So I can say weight is equals to gravitational force, right? How do we write weight? मतलब ये भी F हुआ, ये भी F हुआ, but weight कैसे लिखते हैं हम लोग? Weight is given by weight of that object can be given by mass into gravity, right? Gravitational force कैसे देते हैं? G into capital M small m upon R square. I hope it is clear till here, right? Now this mass of the object gets cancelled out. So we are left with G is equals to G m upon R square, right? What is the value of G? G is small g, that is acceleration due to gravity is equals to gravitational constant into mass of earth upon R square, correct? Now in this, in the textbook, the values of G, M and R square are already given. Gravitational constant we have already done. What is the value of gravitational constant? It is 6.673 into 10 raised to minus 11, right? That is Newton meter square upon kg square, right? What is the mass of earth? Again, it is given in the textbook as 6 into 10 raised to 24 kg. What is the radius of the earth? Radius of the earth is 6.4 into 10 raised to 6 meters. So these values are already given. You know G, you know M, you know R. So if you substitute these values, G is equals to 6.673 into 10 raised to minus 11 into 6 into 10 raised to 24, the whole upon 6.4 into 10 raised to 6 the whole square. So when you will solve all these values, you will get that G is equals to 9.77 meters per second square. This is the value that you get. right? You can do the calculation and see, right? When you will actually divide the numerator with the denominator, you will get G's value. Acceleration due to gravity on the surface of Earth is equals to 9.77 meters per second square. Clear enough, right? Now, when I show you, when I see this value of G, right? Now you can just take a screenshot again and write it later on, right? We'll move on to the next case, right? Now we just saw that is acceleration due to gravity is equals to gravitational constant into the mass of Earth upon radius square. Radius is the distance between the object and the center of the Earth. Now having said that, can I say G is depends is the only okay, when I say that, that means this acceleration due to gravity depends on the mass of Earth. G तो constant ही रहेगा हमेशा 6.673 into 10 raised to -11 हो तो हमेशा constant ही रहेगा, right? Now G depends upon mass of Earth, that is capital M, right? G also depends upon the radius of Earth. Now can you tell me whether this mass of Earth and radius of Earth will ever change? Are these values of M, right, and R square or R ever going to change? No, these values will never change. As a result, right, G is equals to 9.77, right, meters per second square. This value will never change. अगर m कभी चेंज नहीं होगा, r कभी चेंज नहीं होगा, g तो अपना ग्रेविटेशनल कांस्टेंट ही है. If these values will never change, then how is g supposed to change? So in short, I will say g for all the objects at any given point is same, right? So when I say that, right, the value of g, right, for all the objects at any given point is same. It will never change. Is that part clear? Okay. So we just finished this topic. The next one is variation in the value of G. Right. Now we just saw when the object is on the surface of the earth, right, the G will never change. G will remain as it is, that is 9.77 meters per second square. Right. But then there will be some variation in the value of G. Okay. Now you can see the first point. Okay, sorry. The first point states, right, the value of G depends upon mass of the planet. We just saw mass of the planet M. Okay. Radius of the planet R. We just saw, right? It is dependent upon mass of the planet and radius of the planet. But then there are these 3 points, right? What are the 3 points? Change along the surface of the earth, change with respect to height, and change with respect to depth. When we change the position of the object anywhere on the earth, because our earth is not spherical in shape, we know that since earth is not spherical in shape, r thoda sa vary karega, right? So because of that our G value may vary. Again, since our earth is not spherical in shape, height bhi to vary karega, right? So how is this variation going to occur? We will be doing that now. Okay. Something like this, not actually spherical, correct? So this is said to be the equator of the earth, right? This is said to be the whole part. Okay. Okay. Now what we know is the first what are we doing? We are doing change in variation. We are doing variation in value of G. The first point that we have is change along the surface of Earth. Okay. Now, when I say change along the surface of the Earth, we just discussed that Earth is not spherical, right? Now, due to rotation, we know Earth keeps on rotating. So, due to rotation, what happens is the Earth bulges at the equator. Equator पे थोड़ा सा bulge होता है, right? And pole के side पे थोड़ा सा flat हो जाता है. So, in that case, right, I will write due to rotation. Due to rotation, Earth bulges at the equator and flatters at the pole, right? And is flatter at the poles, right? So due to this, what will happen then? Okay. Now this is the pole part. So यहाँ पे थोड़ा सा flat होगा, right? This is the equator. So this, when I say this is the center, then obviously this is the R, right? And this is the equator. थोड़ा सा elongate होता है to along the equator, थोड़ा सा flat होता है along the poles. So because of that, ये R और ये R, if I consider, then R, capital R, that is radius along the equator, is going to be greater than the radius along the poles. मतलब R vary हो रहा है थोड़ा सा, right? Due to the bulging of the Earth at the equator, correct? So because of that, I will write down this is the equator and this is the pole, right? Now because of that, since at the pole the radius is lesser, right? So here, jitna kam distance we just saw, right, that our gravity is inversely proportional to r square, right? मतलब जितना distance कम होगा, right, gravity will also increase, the gravity is going to increase. So that means since at the pole the radius is lesser, that means G is going to be maximum. The value of G will be maximum at the poles, and that is given out to be G at the poles is maximum, and the value is 9.832 meters per second square. This value is given in the textbook. Okay. Now at the equator, the radius is comparatively larger. As a result, at the equator, your G value is going to be minimum, right? And what is that value? Approximately 9.78 meters per second square. So G at equator is minimum. Value of gravity, value of acceleration due to gravity at the equator is minimum, right? That is 9.78 meters per second square. You should know these values, right? I hope it is clear. क्योंकि ये अपॉन आर स्क्वायर है, इनवर्सली प्रोपोर्शनल है, तो अगर आर इंक्रीज होगा तो जी डिक्रीज होगा. If R increases, G decreases. If R decreases, G increases. Okay. Now the second is change with height. Change of the value of G with respect to the height. So second is change with height. Okay. Now when I say change with height, what are we going to determine? Again, let's draw Earth first. Okay. Now when I draw this Earth, right? Now we were doing all these, or we were seeing all these values when the object was on the surface of the Earth, right? So when the object is at the surface, is on the surface of the Earth, this is the center. So this is basically r, right? So तब के वैल्यूज हम लोग को पता है, पर what if we change the height of the object from the center of the circle, from the center of the earth? What if we increase the height, or what if we decrease the height? Right now we are talking about height, right? So matlab what if we increase the height from the center of the earth? So in that case, let's say this is somewhere the height of the object. So this is given by h. This is a new object, position of the object. This is h. So in that case, total distance of that object from the center of the earth will become r plus h. So how will you find g? So g will be basically gm upon r plus h the whole square. Again, मतलब अगर जितना height बढ़ते जाएगा, again height is in the denominator, inversely proportional, right? The more you increase the height, gravity is going to decrease. I hope it is clear. Now when we talk about objects at a height, right? Now we can consider height, right, such that the value is not going, the value of the height increasing will not matter. For example, let's talk about aeroplane. It is given in the textbook. When we consider an aeroplane, right, if an aeroplane is flying at a height of 10 kilometers just above the surface, just 10 kilometers above the surface. Now we already know the radius of the earth is around 6400 kilometers, right? कितना ज्यादा रेडियस है? 6400 किलोमीटर्स का रेडियस है. अभी जब इतना बड़ा रेडियस हम लोग को पता है कि अर्थ का है, इसमें से हम लोग ने जस्ट एच का जो एक्स्ट्रा हाइट है, एरोप्लेन का जो एक्स्ट्रा 10 किलोमीटर्स का हाइट है, वो अगर ऐड करेंगे तो ज्यादा फर्क पड़ेगा क्या ये वैल्यू को? इट विल सिंपली बिकम 6410. 6400 में सिर्फ 10 ऐड करना इज नॉट दैट बिग, राइट? दैट इज व्हाई जी में भी इतना कुछ फर्क नहीं गिरेगा. आर यू गेटिंग मी? But similarly, that means the change in value of g is going to be negligible. What will be the word? Negligible, right? But on the other hand, what if I consider some artificial satellite which is orbiting the earth, right? Obviously अभी artificial satellite एकदम ज्यादा कम हाइट पे नहीं रहेगा, बहुत ज्यादा हाइट पे रहेगा, right? So having said that, artificial satellites तो ऐसे बहुत ज्यादा अराउंड ऐसे 40,000 किलोमीटर हाइट या ऐसा कुछ तो अगर रहेगा तो ऑब्वियसली इट इज गोइंग टू मैटर, ऑब्वियसली द हाइट इज गोइंग टू मैटर. ओके, so in that case eventually there will be some change in g value. Okay, now to understand that, in the textbook they have given some places and their respective heights, places of the objects and their respective height from the center of the earth, and how the g value varies with respect to the height. Okay, so I'll just clear this. Okay, and I'll write down. Okay, now we have just seen if the object is on the surface of the earth, object अगर surface पे हुआ, surface of the earth पे हुआ, right? मतलब हाइट, एक्स्ट्रा हाइट जो है वो तो जीरो रहेगा, जितना आर है, रेडियस है अर्थ का, उतना ही हम लोग का डिस्टेंस कंसिडर होगा. एक्स्ट्रा एच तो जीरो रहेगा. So in that case our g value will remain as it is, that is 9.8 meters per second square, right? थोड़ा सा अगर हम लोग ने हाइट इंक्रीज किया, that means what about, we are talking about Mount Everest, let's say, right? Obviously Mount Everest का थोड़ा सा हाइट बढ़ेगा from the surface of the earth. Let's say your height, extra height that we are talking about is 8.8 kilometers, right? So g का वैल्यू चेंज होगा क्या? 6400 किलोमीटर्स में 8.8 कुछ फर्क लेके आएगा क्या? नहीं. तो our g value will remain as it is, that is 9.8 meters per second square, right? It will not change. ठीक है? Now what if we are sending a man-made balloon? ठीक है, बलून अगर रिलीज किया ठीक है, मैनमेड बलून को अगर रिलीज किया तो व्हाट विल हैपन देन, लेट्स से इट मे रीच अप टू एन हाइट ऑफ 36.6 किलोमीटर्स, ठीक है। तो फिर भी अभी भी कुछ ज्यादा फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा है। व्हेन यू कंपेयर द रेडियस ऑफ द इनिशियल रेडियस ऑफ द अर्थ दैट इज 6400 किलोमीटर्स, अगेन उसमें ये 36.6 का एक्स्ट्रा हाइट ज्यादा मैटर नहीं करेगा। सो अवर ग्रेविटी स्टिल वोंट चेंज, so acceleration due to gravity won't change much, 9.77 meters per second square, correct. Now next example that they have given is a satellite, a weather satellite. वेदर सैटेलाइट जो वेदर के बारे में इंफॉर्मेशन देता रहता है साइंटिस्ट को, राइट। तो वेदर सैटेलाइट कितने ज्यादा हाइट पे रहता है, तो लेट्स से अराउंड 400 किलोमीटर फ्रॉम द अर्थ सरफेस। So now again ठीक है, 400 kilometers is still a bigger value as compared to 8.8 or 36.6 kilometers, right? तो yes, gravity थोड़ा सा change होगा। Now the gravity height बढ़ेगा तो gravity कम होगा, right? So 9.77 से और gravity कम होगा, which comes out to be around 8.6, 8.7 meters per second square. Can you see now? Since you're increasing the height, आपका gravity automatically कम हो रहा है, given that the value of the height is comparatively bigger, right? Now next is communication satellite, जो बहुत ज्यादा ऊपर होता है, artificial satellite, right? So what is the height? Somewhere around 35,700 kilometers. It is so big, right? तो ये हाइट कितना ज्यादा बड़ा हुआ, सो इन दैट केस ग्रेविटी भी उतना ज्यादा अफेक्ट होगा और उतना ज्यादा कम होगा। सो व्हाट विल बी द एक्सेलरेशन ड्यू टू ग्रेविटी नाउ? इट विल जस्ट बी 0.225 meters per second square. See how much the gravity has decreased, right? So this is how you can see that smaller values do not affect the value of g, but when you increase the height of the object from the center of the earth, right, it affects the gravity as lesser as 0.225 meters per second square. Okay, now the third point in variation of g value is, we did first two points. First point was change along the surface of the earth, equator के along gravity minimum है, at the poles gravity maximum है, right? Then we saw the second point, that is change in value of g with respect to height. Then now we are on the third part, right? Change in depth. Now when I say change in depth, depth मतलब surface के नीचे जाएंगे. What was height? Surface के ऊपर जा रहे थे. So as you were increasing the height, gravity's value was decreasing. Now when I say change in depth, depth as in you are going below the surface, right? So in that case, how it is going to matter now? Again, we'll draw earth. We'll show the center of the earth somewhere over here, right? Then what are we doing? We are drawing some depth, right? थोड़ा सा ऐसा dig किया earth को, right? यहाँ पे आपका object है, right? This was the origin. If the original object would have been here, the original distance was, let's say, r, right? But अभी उसको dig किया, right? So on digging it, you can see the value is going to decrease. So in that case, this digging is, let's say, d, right? D amount dig kiya niche. So what will happen then? As you go downwards, now we just saw that value of g depends upon mass of earth and the radius. Now when you will go downwards, when you will dig, when you will go below the surface towards the center of the earth, as you go downwards, right, the mass of the earth is also going to decrease. When we were considering object on the surface of the earth, we were taking the whole mass of the earth. But now when you're going inside the earth, when you're going inside the surface, right, downwards towards the center, right, at every point the mass is going to change now, right? So the more closer you will go, mass is going to reduce, right? Change, when I say change in depth, when your object is going closer towards the center, that means your radius is decreasing. Now you would have said that g का वैल्यू है जी एम अपॉन आर स्क्वायर, मतलब अगर आर डिक्रीज करेंगे तो जी वैल्यू बढ़ना चाहिए, राइट? बट राइट नाउ वी आर जस्ट नॉट लुकिंग एट आर वैल्यू, एम वैल्यू भी चेंज होने वाला है, राइट? सो इन दैट केस if your r is decreasing, your m value is also decreasing. जितना आप नीचे जाओगे आपका मास भी कम होते जाएगा अर्थ का, राइट? नाउ सिंस m तो डायरेक्टली प्रोपोर्शनल है g के, मतलब जितना ज्यादा m उतना ज्यादा g का वैल्यू. So if your mass is decreasing, the value of g is also going to decrease, right? So eventually when I look at these things, that r is decreasing, m is also decreasing, so obviously your value of g is also going to decrease. जितना डेप्थ में जाओगे, जितना नीचे जाओगे, राइट, उतना आपका ग्रेविटी, एक्सेलरेशन ड्यू टू ग्रेविटी, g's value is going to decrease. I hope it is clear, right? So I'll just write it. As you go downwards, as you go downwards, right, g value will keep on decreasing. Right? And the next important point is when the object reaches at the center of the earth, right? When the object reaches at the center of the earth, at the center, right, of the earth, then your g will become 0. G value will become 0. I hope it is clear, right? As you go on, as you take the object downwards towards the center of the earth, the value of g will keep on decreasing, and when the object reaches at the center of the earth, the gravity value is 0. Acceleration due to gravity is 0, right? I hope it is clear. So we saw these 3 points. Again, this is important. You should understand how the g value varies according to those 3 points: change along the surface of the earth, change with height, and change with depth. Height जैसे बढ़ेगा g decrease होगा, right? And in depth also, the more you go towards the center of the earth, right, g value is going to decrease, and at the center the value of g is equals to 0. Okay, now next thing that we can see over here is value of g is given. The last point on this slide, they have given that value of g on the moon is 1/6 times value of g on earth, right? Now you must have heard, you must have seen or heard कि moon पे gravity होता नहीं है ज्यादा, right? And that is why earth पे we can walk on the surface, right? Because there is this pull, there is this gravitational force pulling us downwards. But at the moon, right, there is no gravity, right? That means, or I can say value of g is 1/6 times of g on earth. You can see 1/6 of 9.8. Try and do how much you get, right? So it is so less, right? That pulling force is very less in that case, right? So if asked in the fill in the blanks, right, value of g is how much? It is 1/6 times the value of g on earth, right? Now when we consider mass, as mass of moon is 1/81 times mass of earth, okay, and radius of moon is 1/3.7 times mass of earth. You can see moon का mass और radius के moon का mass और radius as compared to earth is smaller, So accordingly, the value of G is also going to be smaller. Okay, that is 1/6. Okay, the next that we have is mass and weight. Okay, difference between mass and weight. A very common question, right? Now, when I say mass, okay, what is mass? Mass is basically amount of matter present in the body. बॉडी में कितना मैटर प्रेजेंट है उस हिसाब से आपका मास कैलकुलेट होता है, राइट? सो मास इज व्हाट यू नीड टू रिमेंबर दिस, मास ऑफ मैटर प्रेजेंट, सॉरी, मास इज amount of matter present in an object. Now, what is the SI unit? SI unit of mass is what? Kg. So when I say what is the mass, that means it is 10 kgs, 20 kgs, 120 kgs, and so on. So this is the mass. What is the SI unit? Kg. Okay. Now value of mass never changes. ठीक है, इट रिमेन सेम एट ऑल द प्लेसेस. मास का जो वैल्यू होता है वो कभी चेंज नहीं होता. बी वेरेवर, किधर भी रहो, कौन से भी प्लेस पे रहो, आपका मास कभी चेंज नहीं होगा. ओके, and it is a scalar quantity. Now we have done this scalar quantity which only represents magnitude. It only represents magnitude. So on saying that, I can say magnitude means 10 kgs, 20 kgs, 30 kgs. It does not tell you the direction. It only tells you the magnitude, and that is why it is a scalar quantity. So what are the 4 points you need to remember? What is mass? Mass is amount of matter present in an object. What is the SI unit of mass? Kg, right? The value of mass remains same at all places, and it is a scalar quantity, right? So higher the mass, you need to remember this, jitna zyada mass, higher the mass, higher the inertia. To give you a very basic example, if you have been to a resort, right, you must have been to some water slides, right? जब water slides पे जाते हो, right, or if you are on a slide, right, what will happen then? जितना ज्यादा जिसका मास होता है वो बहुत दूर तक आगे पानी में जाता है, राइट? जो जितना ज्यादा हल्का होता है वो बहुत, लाइक, इट डज नॉट गो फर्दर, राइट? So that is how you can remember it. The more high or higher the mass, higher is going to be the inertia. Now coming on to the weight. So what is weight? We had discussed weight. Weight is basically mass into gravity. How do we? Mass is m. If we multiply it with g, we get weight. In short, I can say the capacity of the earth to pull an object downwards, right? I can say capacity of earth. I just type it. What is weight? Weight is capacity of earth, right, to pull an object downwards. Okay, in the textbook they have given the weight of an object is defined as the force with which the earth attracts the object. Attracts the object मतलब कितने फोर्स से वो पुल कर रहा है, और पुलिंग नेचर जो है वो किसके वजह से आता है? ड्यू टू द ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स. So when I multiply by mass with the gravity, right, acceleration due to gravity, that is g, right, you get the weight. And we know that this gravity always acts downward, vertically downwards towards the center of the earth, right? How is this acceleration causing? This acceleration is resulted towards the center of the earth. So we know the magnitude of this weight, जो भी 50 kgs या 60 kgs होगा, and since we are multiplying by g, acceleration due to gravity, we also know the direction of that particular quantity, and hence we can call it as a vector quantity. I hope it is clear. Since we know this is a vector quantity, since we know magnitude as well as the direction. Direction क्या है? Vertically downwards towards the center of the earth. It is called as a vector quantity. And we have just seen that how g changes from place to place. g का ऑब्जेक्ट का हाइट बढ़ाया, ऑब्जेक्ट का डेप्थ कम किया, या फिर where are we placing that object, accordingly our g varies. So obviously if g varies, weight is also going to vary from place to place. And what is the SI unit of n? SI unit of weight. SI unit of weight is newtons. Mass into acceleration due to gravity. That will give you newtons. So these are the 4 points, right? Again, we will repeat. Mass is amount of matter present in an object, whereas weight is what? Weight is the force with which Earth attracts the planet or attracts any object towards itself. Mass is a scalar quantity as it only represents magnitude. Weight is a vector quantity as it represents magnitude and direction both, right? Mass remains same at all places. Weight changes from place to place. Why? Because it depends upon the value of g. What is the SI unit of mass? Kgs. What is the SI unit of weight? Newtons. Okay. Next we'll see. So can you see they have given, right? Earth is given and moon is given. If on the earth, see, mass is same. If the mass of that particular person is 120 kgs, right? Then how do we find weight? Weight will be mass into acceleration due to gravity, that is g. 9.8 को approximately 10 लिया है. So that will be 120 into 10, that is 1200 newtons. Weight newtons में होगा, right? And on the moon, you can see mass तो सेम ही है पर्सन का 120 kg, बट वहां पे ग्रेविटी नहीं, ठीक है, तो ग्रेविटी बहुत कम होता है. So you can see weight is approximately 200 newtons.